Music volume 0%.
Good afternoon. I am Blind Prime, and you are watching Blindformers, episode 11. Today I have for you Studio Series 86, the movie Jazz. Now, this jazz is very cool and important because this is the first time we've gotten a jazz so close to the G1 style before. Apparently, Porsche, the company that this vehicle mode is based off of, doesn't really like Transformers and doesn't really like the fact that they have guns. So they don't really like Transformers and Hasbro doing any Porsches. But with Jazz here, they managed to convince Porsche to allow them to do something like a Porsche, but not quite a Porsche. So that Porsche could stick to its guns and Hasbro could give us a Jazz. So we have Jazz here, and he is from the original 1986 Transformers movie. That's pretty cool. I enjoyed that movie. So we have a Bumblebee here for size comparison. So come on, Mr. Bumblebee. Where do you keep getting these swords? That's a big sword. Are you working with the cats? Let's take a look. Alright, so Bumblebee comes up to be, his head comes to the very top of the hood chest piece for Jazz. Of course, the sword's above everybody. It's a big sword, Bumblebee. You sure you're not compensating for something? Let's put Bumblebee off to the side here. Alright. So, let's take away the gun, measure him. He's going to measure at 18 squares, 18 Lego studs in height. That's pretty cool. Good old Lego stud measuring. Now, let's get to the transformation for him. And he is kind of a fun transformation. First off, you want to pick up his backpack. So he's got this backpack. It's got two doors on the side. And I did want to make a statement before I start transforming him. He's got some really cool textures to him. Like they definitely worked hard with the mold to, you can feel where the hood panel intersects with the hood. You can feel little rivets and stuff where it's tied down. There's so many little textures on this guy that you'd spend a while just feeling it and learning more about this vehicle type. Now, let's get to the transformation. So first off, you want to pick up his backpack. Unclip it from his back and bring it all the way up. And inside the backpack, there is a end of the window, like the back window panel, and that can just unfold from the inside of the backpack, and it kind of just clips in place. You don't need to really do much with it. It likes where it likes to go. Now, we will pick his hands up so that they're out of the way, and then put your fingers under his hood, his chest hood, and go ahead and pick it all the way up. Now, flip him upside down, and you'll feel inside of his hood, in that negative space, that there's a little folded piece. So you want to take that folded little joint panel, and you want to fold it all the way towards the front of the hood, so that when you run your fingers across the underside of the hood, you now have this lip that sticks out just a little bit. And that's what you wanted. Now that that's moved, then you take your finger and you push on the top of the head, and the head will spin in place into the hood. Now, after you have done that, take that piece that we just moved out of the way and created the lip, and you want to use your thumb to push that piece back into place. There will be a nice little click when it rests in its proper location, and that part is done. Now, let's move to his midsection. His midsection's neat because it's got two spinny joints. So the waist swivels and then the core swivels. So what we want to do is we want to move the core, the center bit of him, 180 degrees. It's easier to do this now than later. So go ahead and complete that process now. Once you have moved that centerpiece 180 degrees, now it's time to play with the legs for a minute. You want to go ahead and snap the top of the foot down. It will fold into place on the underside of the foot, and once that is complete, you want to then push. You feel when you're working with these knees on his legs, you can feel that they have a weird joint. They don't like pegging into place very well, and so it can be kind of a double joint. Well, you want to take that double joint and unpin it from the foot and then push the thigh around. It will naturally just kind of flow around and sink into place. And you want to copy that process with the other side. This is kind of easy. So you just grab the lower leg and with the feet attached to it, and you push it up, and the thigh and knee will swivel downwards, and it will take up the negative space that existed on the back side of each leg. Now that that is done, you then want to find the wheel that's on each side of the leg, and you want to spin that counterclockwise. You want to spin that counterclockwise on each side, and make sure that the wheels face downwards. And you don't want them, spinning them all the way to face up. You can spin them all the way to face up, but I don't. It won't work for this transformation. Now, spin them down just a little extra because we're going to need some room to fix up the hands. Now, while you're back here, go ahead and take both of the legs and peg them in together. There are some male and female peg holes in the sides of the feet and in the sides of the spoiler that goes on the back. Now that that is complete, we'll go back to working on the front because we've now freed up some room. So let's go ahead and take these arms, and for the arms you want to move them. You just push them in towards the center of the vehicle. Now, before we complete this process though, remember to put each fist into the forearm. If you feel on the forearm of there'll be this negative space, this empty location, and you can push on the fist and it will spin to go into that spot, and it fits quite snugly. Then what you want to do is you want to feel where on the forearm that there's a male rectangular peg, and you want to make sure that male peg is facing away, out from the center of the vehicle, so that when the wheel gets pushed in, the peg is outside. Now, to move the arm into place, it's very simple. The wheel that's on the inside that you can feel if you move your hand in there just spins in place. The arm comes up or down under the vehicle into the chassis area, and you have to make sure that you spin the shoulder correctly so that the arms will lay flat on the inside of the undercarriage. Make sure that both of the forearms are in the positions where the arms lay flat across the bottom, and the forearm, those male pegs, will kind of sync up with the flappy little doors on either side of what is now becoming the top of the car. Now that that is done, and those are in place, and everything else seems to be in place, you want to take the top of the cab, the top of the car, and you want to find on the back end, near the spoiler, you will feel, if you take your finger and drag it down the middle pole of the spoiler where it's two little pieces clipped together, you will find that there are two tiny little male pegs in there. There's your pegs. And if you feel on the underside of the back of the window, you will feel that there's two tiny little peg holes. So we're just going to move it around until we can get those pegs into those peg holes. It may take a moment. It is a little difficult because this stuff does snap together quite nice, firmly, and it's, they really tried to make sure there was not much negative space here. So once you have snapped those two together, take your time on it, but don't worry, this thing seems like it's a little difficult to break. Once you've done that, fold both of the doors down and make sure that they snap into, if you feel on the inside of the doors, you will feel that there's a little peg hole, a little rectangular hole that the male peg on the forearm goes into. And you have to get in there, make sure that you connect those things properly, or else this entire thing will kind of fall apart. Now that you've completed the door assembly on the sides, just tilt both of the wheels up, and if now it's time to use your fingers and go around and make sure that you have lined all of the textures up. And that's another cool thing about this guy. He's got all these textures that can actually, if you use your fingers, you can feel where they all line up. This is very, very nicely done. After you have completed that, you have your own Jazz. Yep, that's all it takes to transform Jazz. His little gun can fit on the top of him, like so. I really wish they'd give more siege port things, or at least have figured out a way to put the gun inside the transformation. I mean, it has these two male siege pegs on the sides, and you would think it would fit in there somewhere, but I can't find out where at all. So, now that we've done that, let's take a look at his sizing. He is exactly 16 studs long in vehicle mode. Let's compare him to his friend and cohort, Cliffjumper. Cliffjumper is nearly the size of him, but Jazz is just a few studs longer than Cliffjumper. Once again, Cliffjumper, for those who may have forgotten, is 14, 13, 12. He's 12 studs long. Cliffjumper is 12 studs long. So there's your idea on his sizing. He's a pretty cool little guy. He's he's the co-commander of the Autobots on Earth during the original show, and he takes his job pretty seriously, and the dude fell in love with Earth and their music and all the things that humanity can provide culturally that Cybertron had forgotten about during its time of war. And so you could tell he was kind of a war-weary soldier who just wanted to sing and play music and retire. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Blindformers episode 11, and I have been your host, Blind Prime. I hope y'all all have a wonderful day, and thank you again. Bye-bye.